It's been nearly 70 years since they graced our screens, and the world has moved on, but have they? The cast of the 1955 Little Rascals left an indelible mark on Hollywood, yet their paths after the show were anything but simple. From sudden disappearances to unbelievable transformations, these updates will shock your system. This is more than a reunion. It's a final emotional goodbye to the icons of our youth. Carl Alfalfa Switzer as Alfalfa, born on August 7, 1927, in Paris, Illinois. Carl Dean Switzer first brought his signature character to life when he joined the Our Gang comedy shorts in 1935. At the age of 7, Switzer's portrayal of Alfalfa became a cultural touchstone, endearing audiences with his center-parted cowlick freckles and hilariously off-key singing. As the beloved, awkward, romantic suitor of the group, his character was instrumental in defining the Depression-era series. When the classic shorts were later packaged and syndicated for television as The Little Rascals in 1955, his iconic performance found immense new success, cementing Alfalfa as one of the most recognizable and spoofed figures in American pop culture history. Despite his character's innocent, sweet-natured, and lovable on-screen persona, Carl Switzer's real personality was often in stark contrast to the endearing boy he played. Behind the scenes, he was frequently described by co-stars and crew as mischievous, abrasive, and quick-tempered, which sometimes led to on-set clashes. His career was also heavily marked by the struggle of being severely typecast as a juvenile actor, which made it incredibly difficult for him to find substantial work in Hollywood as he grew into an adult. After aging out of the series in 1940, he was largely relegated to uncredited bit parts and B-movies. Adding to his professional sting and financial hardship, Switzer received absolutely no residuals when the shorts were syndicated for television in 1955, leaving him without compensation for the show's massive resurgence in popularity. Unable to sustain a living solely through acting, Switzer supplemented his income in his later years by working as a bartender, dog breeder, and hunting guide for Hollywood elites. In his personal life, he married Diantha Collingwood in 1954, and the couple had one son before ultimately divorcing in 1957. Switzer's life came to a violent and tragic end when he passed away in Mission Hills, California, on January 21, 1959, at the age of 31. His cause of death was a fatal gunshot wound suffered during a heated physical altercation with an acquaintance over a disputed $50 reward for a lost hunting dog. In the immediate aftermath, a coroner's jury ruled the incident a justifiable homicide, and the shooter was cleared of all criminal charges. Adding a final melancholic note to his Hollywood legacy, Switzer's death received only minor notice in the press, as his passing was completely overshadowed by the death of legendary filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille on the exact same day. George Spanky McFarland as Spanky. Born on October 2, 1928 in Dallas, Texas, the actor became a household name through the classic Our Gang comedy shorts, which found a massive, renewed audience when syndicated to television in 1955 as The Little Rascals. At the age of 3, McFarland first took the role of Spanky, bringing to life the chubby, beanie-wearing child mastermind. His portrayal of the exasperated but resourceful leader of the neighborhood kids became an enormous success, lifting the spirits of audiences during the Great Depression and leaving a cultural impact that defined mischievous childhood innocence for multiple generations. Despite the bossy, boisterous, and scheme-hatching nature of his on-screen persona, McFarland was, in reality, a grounded and unassuming individual who struggled with the overwhelming shadow of his childhood fame. This contrast defined much of his life, as he found it nearly impossible to separate his true identity from his famous moniker. The public always expected the outspoken little boy rather than the regular man he had become. Typecasting hit him exceptionally hard. As he aged out of his cute phase and departed the series in his early teens, he realized Hollywood had no further use for him. Unable to find consistent acting work, he faced significant professional hardships, eventually abandoning the industry to take on a string of ordinary jobs, including working at a soft drink plant, operating a hamburger stand, and selling appliances just to survive. In his later years, McFarland eventually made peace with his legacy, making appearances at memorabilia shows and hosting local television programs where he embraced his Little Rascals past. He enjoyed a relatively quiet personal life, settling down in Texas with his wife Doris and their 3 children, and ultimately finding long-term employment as a national sales training director for a wine company. He made a memorable cameo appearance as himself in an episode of the sitcom Cheers in 1993, shortly before his death. McFarland passed away suddenly in Grapevine, Texas, on June 30, 1993, at the age of 64 due to a heart attack. The aftermath of his passing brought renewed appreciation for his life's work, and in January 1994, he was posthumously honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, cementing his legacy as one of the most beloved child stars in entertainment history. Darla Hood as Darla. Born on November 8, 1931 in Leedy, Oklahoma, the talented young performer was scouted by Hal Roach Studios to join the Our Gang comedy shorts, which found massive mainstream success when syndicated for television as The Little Rascals in 1955. At the age of 4, Hood's portrayal of the sweet, coquettish Darla became a cultural touchstone, offering a delightful depiction of childhood innocence and early romance that was universally beloved. As the primary love interest for characters like Alfalfa and Butch, her memorable singing voice and enchanting smile defined a character that remains one of the most iconic figures of classic American entertainment. Despite the character's natural, relatable, and unpretentious childhood charm, Darla Hood's real-life upbringing was quite different. She was an intensely trained and polished show business prodigy who had been taking singing and dancing lessons since she was a toddler, a stark contrast to the everyday kid personas of her co-stars. This disparity was a significant part of her personal journey, as she later found the transition from a beloved child star to a working adult actress to be an enormous challenge. Her career was marked by the struggle of being typecast, which made it incredibly difficult for her to find prominent on-screen work once she outgrew the role. She famously expressed heartbreak over the fact that fans were visibly disappointed when they met her expecting to see the eternal 8-year-old, rather than a grown woman, and she additionally had to navigate the bizarre professional hardship of dealing with imposters attempting to steal her identity. Darla Hood continued to work in entertainment for decades, successfully pivoting to music and voiceover work while marrying record executive Jose Granson and raising 3 children. She formed a vocal group called the Enchanters, starred in Ken Murray's long-running stage review Blackouts, and provided the voice for the mermaid in iconic Chicken of the Sea commercials, as well as making guest appearances on shows like The Merv Griffin Show. She was in the midst of organizing a Little Rascals reunion when tragedy struck. Hood passed away at a hospital in Canoga Park, California on June 13, 1979, at the age of 47 from congestive heart failure. Her untimely death was the result of acute hepatitis contracted from a contaminated blood transfusion during a routine appendectomy, a devastating aftermath that shocked her fans and fueled urban legends of a Little Rascals curse before she was finally laid to rest at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Billy Buckwheat Thomas as Buckwheat. Born on March 12, 1931 in Los Angeles, California, William Billy Thomas Jr. first brought his iconic character to life in the Our Gang comedy shorts, which were later universally known in television syndication as The Little Rascals. At the age of 3, Thomas first took the role that would quickly evolve into Buckwheat, creating a cultural touchstone that offered a groundbreaking, albeit heavily debated on-screen depiction of a black child playing alongside white children in an integrated setting. For a decade, his endearing smile, distinctive clothing, and unforgettable catchphrase, "Ote," defined a character that remains one of early Hollywood's most culturally enduring figures. Despite the character's famously garbled speech and mischievous, slow-witted on-screen persona, Billy Thomas was a highly articulate, practical, and grounded individual whose real personality was in stark contrast to his cinematic alter ego. This contrast highlighted his personal journey. While he defended the shorts for their barrier-breaking racial integration, he bore the heavy professional hardship of being permanently typecast by a role that later drew intense criticism from civil rights groups for perpetuating harmful racial stereotypes. Finding the Hollywood audition circuit to be an insecure and exhausting rat race, Thomas struggled with the inescapable shadow of buckwheat. Realizing the immense difficulty of finding dignified, steady acting work in an industry eager to pigeonhole him, he actively chose to walk away from the spotlight to seek a more secure path. Billy Thomas went on to build a quiet, stable life away from the cameras, enlisting in the U.S. Army in 1954, where he served for 2 years and received a National Defense Service Medal and a Good Conduct Medal. After his military service, he raised his son, William Jr., and utilized his industry experience to build a successful behind-the-scenes career as a film lab technician for the Technicolor Corporation. Thomas passed away at his apartment in Los Angeles, California on October 10, 1980, at the age of 49 from a heart attack, coincidentally exactly 46 years to the day after his mother first brought him to audition at Hal Roach Studios. His death was followed by a bizarre media aftermath in 1990, when an imposter named Bill English falsely claimed to be the adult buckwheat on the ABC news program 2020. A distressing situation that was only resolved when his former co-star George "Spanky" McFarland publicly intervened to force a network retraction and fiercely defend Thomas's true legacy. Jackie Cooper as Jackie. Born on September 15, 1922 in Los Angeles, California, the young talent first brought the endearing Jackie to life in Hal Roach's Our Gang comedy shorts, which were later famously syndicated for television as The Little Rascals in 1955. At the age of 6, Cooper's portrayal of the charming, pouting, and slightly love-struck neighborhood boy became a cultural touchstone of early American cinema. His remarkable ability to convey genuine emotion resonated deeply with audiences, offering a hilarious yet authentic depiction of childhood innocence. His success in the franchise helped define a character that remains one of the era's most iconic figures, propelling him to unprecedented heights of early stardom and leading to a historic Academy Award nomination by the time he was 9. Despite his character's carefree and innocent on-screen demeanor, Jackie Cooper's real-life experience was heavily burdened by the intense pressure of being a child star, and he deeply resented the strict control of his early years. This contrast was a significant part of his personal journey. He later described the dark realities of his youth in his autobiography, Please Don't Shoot My Dog, revealing the emotional abuse he suffered when a director famously threatened to shoot his pet to elicit genuine tears for a scene. His career was also marked by the notorious struggle of transitioning into adulthood in Hollywood. He faced severe typecasting and immense difficulty finding meaningful work as his boyish appeal faded, leading to a long professional slump. This decline forced him to take a hiatus from acting, during which he served in the U.S. Navy during World War II in search of a renewed sense of purpose away from the cameras. Jackie Cooper ultimately reinvented his career, stepping behind the camera to become a highly successful television executive and Emmy Award-winning director for hit shows like MASH and The White Shadow. He also enjoyed a late-career resurgence on the big screen, famously playing Daily Planet editor Perry White in the Christopher Reeve Superman films throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Married 3 times, he found lasting stability with his third wife, Barbara Ray Krause, and intentionally kept his own children out of show business to protect them from the industry's hardships. Cooper passed away at a hospital in Santa Monica, California on May 3, 2011, at the age of 88 following a brief illness. His passing marked the loss of one of the last surviving cinematic pioneers of his era, and as a notable aftermath to his lifelong dedication, he was laid to rest with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery, celebrating both his Hollywood legacy and his distinguished naval service. Matthew Stymie Beard as Stymie. Born on January 1, 1925 in Los Angeles, California, Matthew Beard Jr. first brought his iconic character to life in the Our Gang theatrical shorts, which were later introduced to a massive new generation as The Little Rascals 1955 in television syndication. At the age of 5, Beard's portrayal of the self-assured and street-smart Stymie became a cultural touchstone. Recognizable by his oversized derby hat, a gift from comedian Stan Laurel, and his nonchalant attitude, Stymie offered a brilliant depiction of a quick-witted, common-sense child who could cleverly outsmart any adversary. His sly comments, effortless comedic timing, and unforgettable smile defined a character that remains one of early cinema and television's most beloved African-American figures. Despite the character's carefree and clever nature on screen, Matthew Beard's real life was marked by severe hardship and a painful transition out of the spotlight. Unlike the consistently resourceful Stymie, Beard struggled to find his footing once he outgrew the role and formally retired from acting by the time he was in high school. The transition from a celebrated child star to a young adult brought devastating personal and professional struggles, as he found it nearly impossible to secure acting work or break free from the typecasting of his youth. He eventually fell into street life and developed a severe heroin addiction, spending much of his early adult life in and out of jail on drug and theft charges while completely alienated from the entertainment industry. Fortunately, Matthew Beard managed to turn his life around in the 1960s after successfully overcoming his addiction at Synanon, a drug rehabilitation program in Los Angeles. Rebuilding his personal and professional life, he made a triumphant comeback, taking on guest roles in hit 1970s television shows like Sanford and Son, Good Times, and The Jeffersons. He also toured the country giving lectures on drug abuse awareness and appeared in the 1978 film The Buddy Holly Story, proudly wearing his trademark bowler hat. Tragically, his renewed life was cut short when he suffered a stroke that caused him to fall down a flight of stairs and sustained severe head injuries. Matthew Beard passed away in Los Angeles, California, on January 8, 1981, at the age of 56 from pneumonia brought on by his injuries. In a touching aftermath to his legacy, he was laid to rest at Evergreen Cemetery, buried alongside the famous derby hat that had defined his legendary character. Dicky Moore as Dicky. Born John Richard Moore, Jr. on September 12, 1925 in Los Angeles, California, the young actor brought his natural charm to the iconic Our Gang comedy shorts, which were later famously syndicated to television as The Little Rascals in 1955. At the age of 6, Moore's portrayal of Dicky, the endearing and cherubic-faced leader of the gang, became a cinematic and cultural touchstone. Despite only appearing as a regular during the 1932 to 1933 season, his big brown eyes and precocious talent defined a character that captivated Depression-era moviegoers and later delighted generations of television audiences, cementing his place as a beloved figure in classic American comedy. Despite the character's carefree, mischievous, and playful nature on screen, Dicky Moore's real life was weighed down by immense pressure and adult expectations. While Dicky was leading innocent childhood adventures, Moore was serving as his family's de facto breadwinner during the Great Depression, a crushing responsibility that stripped away much of his own childhood. His career was severely marked by the struggle of being typecast. As he outgrew his saucer-eyed cuteness, he found it incredibly difficult to secure meaningful work, facing a painful transition into teenage and adult roles. Audiences and studios only wanted to see him as the little boy they remembered, which led to a devastating drop in film offers, a loss of identity, and subsequent personal battles with depression and alcohol addiction. Dicky Moore eventually overcame his early hardships by stepping away from the camera and successfully reinventing himself. After serving in the United States Army during World War II and retiring from acting in the 1950s, he conquered his personal demons and founded his own public relations firm, Dick Moore and Associates, which he ran for over 4 decades. In 1984, he published a critically acclaimed book, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, But Don't Have Sex or Take the Car, a candid exploration of the unique struggles faced by child stars. It was while interviewing subjects for this book that he met legendary musical actress Jane Powell, to whom he was happily married from 1988 until the end of his life. Moore passed away at a hospice in Wilton, Connecticut on September 7, 2015, at the age of 89, from natural causes complicated by dementia. His passing just 5 days short of his 90th birthday marked the poignant loss of one of the very last surviving actors of the silent film era and Hollywood's golden age, Eugene "Porky" Lee as Porky. Born on October 25, 1933, the Fort Worth, Texas native first brought his iconic character to the screen in the classic Our Gang comedy shorts, which found enduring fame when syndicated as The Little Rascals, starting in 1955. At the age of 18 months, Lee's portrayal of Spanky's chubby tag-along younger brother became a massive cultural touchstone, offering a hilarious and endearing depiction of childhood innocence. For 4 years, his naive, scene-stealing antics and slight speech impediment defined a character that remains one of early cinema's most beloved figures, most notably originating the widely recognized pop culture catchphrase, "O-Tay." Despite the character's fame as an extroverted and highly recognizable Hollywood star, Eugene Gordon Lee was a fiercely private individual who grew up to be the polar opposite of his bubbly, on-screen persona. The contrast was a significant part of his personal journey. He actively suppressed his child star past and kept it a secret from his acquaintances for decades. His acting career suffered an abrupt and unavoidable cancellation when a sudden childhood growth spurt made the 5-year-old as tall as his 10-year-old older castmates, leading to him being let go from the studio. Struggling with the burden of child stardom and the looming threat of being permanently typecast as the pudgy little brother, he eventually began going by his middle name, Gordon, leaving the entertainment industry entirely to pursue a quiet, normal life away from the cameras. Lee transitioned into a completely different professional realm, dedicating his adult life to working as an alternative high school educator in Colorado. He remained extremely private until the early 1980s, when he finally embraced his Hollywood legacy by attending Little Rascals reunions, starting a merchandise business, and reconnecting with classic film fans. After retiring from teaching, he moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota to be closer to his only son, Douglas, and spent his final 13 years with his partner, Janice McLean. Eugene Gordon Lee passed away in a Minneapolis nursing home on October 16, 2005, at the age of 71 after a battle with lung and brain cancer. Following his death, his ashes were scattered by his loved ones, and his passing was deeply mourned by the tight-knit community of classic film fans and local clubs who had helped drive the aging actor to autograph shows and finally gotten to know the man behind the legendary childhood role. Tommy Bond as Butch. Born on September 16, 1926, in Dallas, Texas, the child actor first gained fame in the Our Gang comedy shorts, which were later widely syndicated on television in 1955 as The Little Rascals. At the age of 10, Bond was cast as Butch, the scowling, tough-talking neighborhood bully who made his debut in the 1937 short Glove Taps. His portrayal of the archetypal brute became a cultural touchstone as he constantly threatened to bounce the meek alfalfa like a rubber ball and fiercely competed for the affections of Darla. With his memorable catchphrase, "You're darn right it's Butch," Bond created a character that terrified the on-screen kids, but thoroughly delighted generations of television audiences, cementing his place in classic American comedy. Despite his on-screen persona as a nasty, intimidating bully, Tommy Bond was described by those who knew him as the polar opposite of Butch. Off-screen, he had a reputation for being an incredibly kind, gentle, and well-adjusted individual. In fact, Carl Switzer, who played his on-screen nemesis Alfalfa, was his best friend in real life. Whenever Switzer misbehaved on set, it was usually Bond who calmed him down. Professionally, Bond faced the harsh realities common to child actors. As he outgrew the role of Butch, he struggled with typecasting and the difficulty of finding substantial acting work as a young adult. After taking minor B-movie parts and a brief stint playing Jimmy Olsen in Superman film serials, he ultimately gave up acting in 1951, opting for the stability of behind-the-scenes television production over the uncertainty of Hollywood casting. Tommy Bond spent decades working successfully behind the cameras as a television director, producer, and prop manager, remaining married to former beauty queen Polly Darling for over 50 years. Retiring from television in 1991, he spent his later years living on a ranch in the Fresno, California area, serving as a passionate historian and keeper of the Our Gang flame through frequent appearances, and his 1994 autobiography, Darn Right It's Butch. Bond passed away in Northridge, California on September 24, 2005, at the age of 79 from complications related to heart disease. His death marked the loss of one of the last prominent surviving members of the iconic comedy troupe. Having notably avoided the tragic Our Gang curse that prematurely claimed the lives of many of his peers, he was honorably laid to rest at Riverside National Cemetery. Alan Farina Hoskins as Farina. Born on August 9, 1920 in Boston, Massachusetts, the young actor began his historic run in the Our Gang comedy shorts, which were famously repackaged and syndicated on television as The Little Rascals in 1955. At the age of 1, Hoskins' portrayal of the endearing and resourceful Farina became a massive success and a cultural milestone. Though his character initially wore gender-neutral, patched-up clothes and was rooted in the stereotypes of the era, Hoskins infused Farina with a unique intelligence and charm that transcended the caricatures of the time. He became one of the first African-American child stars to achieve mainstream national prominence, anchoring the series through the silent era and into the dawn of talkies, while earning more than most adult actors in Hollywood. Despite playing a character often depicted as a naive, ragged, and chaotic toddler, Alan Hoskins was exceptionally bright, articulate, and far removed from the minstrel-era stereotypes his character was initially styled after. His on-set studio teacher even described him as the smartest student she ever had. This contrast between his real intellect and his screen persona mirrored his broader professional struggles. As Hoskins grew older and lost his toddler-like cuteness, he aged out of the series at 11 and was unceremoniously let go, facing the harsh reality of being a typecast former child star. The transition to adult roles proved nearly impossible in a segregated Hollywood that offered few opportunities for young black actors. After serving in the U.S. Army during World War II, Hoskins tried to reignite his acting career, even auditioning for the Amos and Andy television series, but was repeatedly rejected. Facing a persistent lack of work and the shadow of blacklisting during the McCarthy era, he made the difficult decision to abandon Hollywood entirely later, remarking that he simply preferred a job that allowed me to eat regular. Alan Hoskins built a highly successful and dignified second career, far from the spotlight, settling in the San Francisco Bay Area with his wife Francie, where they raised their family. He became a licensed psychiatric technician and dedicated the rest of his life to social work, eventually serving as the director of vocational rehabilitation programs that helped disabled individuals find employment and independence. Although he left acting behind, his pioneering contributions to cinema were recognized when he was inducted into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame in 1975. Hoskins passed away in Oakland, California on July 26, 1980, at the age of 59, following a battle with cancer. In a somber aftermath to his passing, this trailblazing child star was initially buried in an unmarked grave at Evergreen Cemetery. It wasn't until the year 2000, 2 decades after his death, that he finally received a proper headstone to honor his historic legacy. Norman Chubby Cheney as Chubby. Born on October 18, 1914, the Cambridge, Maryland native first brought Chubby to life in the Our Gang comedy shorts, which found a massive new audience on television as The Little Rascals 1955. At the age of 14, Cheney's portrayal of the jovial, plus-sized romantic became a cultural touchstone, offering a hilarious depiction of childhood mischief and innocent puppy love. For 2 years, his impeccable comedic timing, his mastery of the frustrated, slow burn, and his unforgettable attempts to woo his schoolteacher defined a character that remains one of early cinema's most iconic figures. Despite the character's boldly extroverted, mischievous, and aggressively flirtatious nature, Norman Cheney was a polite, quiet, and gentle teenager described by directors and castmates as an incredibly nice fellow, the polar opposite of his bold on-screen persona. This contrast highlighted his genuine acting ability as he had to be taught how to perform his signature frustrations by veteran comedians. Unfortunately, his career was marked by the harsh realities of the child acting industry. Because his age had been falsified to win the role, Cheney quickly outgrew the part and was unceremoniously phased out of the series by 1931, when producers felt he was no longer cute. Facing an industry that had typecast him purely as a novelty fat kid and struggling to find any further acting work, he was forced to abandon his Hollywood career. He quietly returned to public school in Baltimore, having never received any royalties or residuals from his highly profitable films. Norman Cheney's later years were tragically brief, marked by a retreat from the public eye and severe health struggles. While living an ordinary life back in Baltimore, he developed a severe glandular ailment that caused his weight to balloon to over 300 pounds. After undergoing a drastic surgical treatment at Johns Hopkins Hospital in 1935, his weight rapidly plummeted to 110 pounds, putting catastrophic stress on his young body. Cheney passed away in Baltimore, Maryland on May 29, 1936, at the age of 21 from myocarditis. His untimely passing made him the very first Our Gang alumnus to die. The aftermath of his death was particularly disheartening. Due to his family's severe financial struggles, he was buried in an unmarked grave for 76 years. It wasn't until 2012 that a fundraising campaign led by devoted fans finally purchased a headstone for his resting place at Baltimore Cemetery, ensuring his Hollywood legacy would be properly remembered. Bobby Weezer Hutchins as Weezer. Born on March 29, 1925 in Tacoma, Washington, the energetic young actor first brought his beloved character to life in the classic Our Gang theatrical shorts, which found immortal fame when repackaged for television as The Little Rascals in 1955. At the age of 2, Hutchins' portrayal of the sweet, eager-to-please, tag-along little brother became an enduring piece of cinematic and television history. For 6 years, his natural charm and distinctive moniker, earned after running around the studio so excitedly on his first day, that he began to wheeze, helped define the early silent and sound eras of the beloved comedy series, leaving a lasting cultural impact as one of its most memorable and innocent early faces. Despite his character's on-screen persona, as a frequently overlooked, put-upon younger sibling who was often sidelined by the older kids, Bobby Hutchins was naturally extremely outgoing and spirited in real life. This vibrant personality initially won him the role, but his professional journey soon met with significant hardships. As the fast-paced studio system evolved, Hutchins faced the harsh reality of being outgrown by the very series that made him famous. When new child stars like George "Spanky" McFarland debuted and quickly captured the spotlight, Hutchins saw his once prominent standing drastically diminish to background appearances with very few lines. Finding himself abruptly out of favor with the producers, he was effectively aged out and dropped from the series by the time he was 8 years old. Unable to secure significant film work afterward, and struggling to overcome the typecasting of his famous childhood persona, Hutchins left Hollywood entirely, eventually returning to a quiet, ordinary life in Tacoma to attend public school. After leaving the entertainment industry, Bobby Hutchins transitioned into a private life far removed from the silver screen, eventually enlisting as an aviation cadet in the United States Army Air Forces during World War II. Tragically, he would never live to see the massive television resurgence of his childhood work when The Little Rascals was broadly syndicated to new generations in 1955. Hutchins passed away on May 17, 1945, at the young age of 20, killed in a fatal mid-air collision during a training exercise at the Merced Army Airfield in California. His plane struck another aircraft while attempting to land, a heartbreaking end compounded by the devastating aftermath that his mother was scheduled to travel to the airfield for his flight school graduation just a week later. He was brought home and laid to rest at the Parkland Lutheran Cemetery in Tacoma, Washington, where his grave bearing the simple epitaph "Our Bob" is honored with a flag each Memorial Day. Dorothy DeBorba as Dorothy. Born on March 28, 1925, the Los Angeles, California native first brought the character of Dorothy to life in the Our Gang comedy shorts in 1930 before the franchise was famously syndicated for television as The Little Rascals in 1955. At the age of 5, DeBorba's portrayal of the spunky, smart-alecky little sister became a cultural touchstone for audiences of the era, offering a humorous and iconic depiction of childhood mischief. With her trademark ringlet curls, elaborate hair bows, and famous running gag of mimicking the older children's dialogue, her undeniable charm defined a character that remains a beloved figure in classic American entertainment. Despite the character's polished, impeccably styled on-screen persona as a delicate bundle of curls, Dorothy DeBorba was naturally a tomboy who preferred getting dirty and playing in the mud, a stark contrast to the grueling 2 hours her mother spent brushing and styling her hair into ringlets each night. While she projected effortless fun on film, she personally found the dual demands of working on a movie set every day and attending school to be incredibly taxing. Her career was also marked by the harsh, inevitable struggles of being a child star. As she grew older, she was unceremoniously phased out of the series because she had outgrown the prerequisite cuteness demanded by the studio. By the time her final short wrapped in 1933, she faced the professional sting of obsolescence, noting herself that by the age of 10, her movie career was effectively finished, making it nearly impossible for her to find sustainable acting work in Hollywood. Dorothy DeBorba left the entertainment industry behind and successfully transitioned to a private life, eventually dedicating many years as a senior clerk in the School of Journalism at UC Berkeley. She was married twice, her first marriage ending tragically when she was widowed, and her second ending in divorce, and she raised 2 children. In her later decades, she embraced her legacy by frequently attending conventions for the Sons of the Desert, an international Laurel and Hardy appreciation society, happily sharing memories with fans of her childhood fame. DeBorba passed away at a hospital in Walnut Creek, California on June 2, 2010, at the age of 85 from emphysema. Her death marked the passing of one of the few surviving leading ladies of the Hal Roach era, and in accordance with her family's wishes, no formal public services were held, leaving behind a quiet but enduring legacy. Watching the Little Rascals grow up reminds us that while the black and white film fades, the impact of their talent never does. Their legacy is a tapestry of laughter and lessons that still resonate decades later. As we honor their paths, we celebrate the magic of classic television that stays with us forever. What other classic casts should we revisit next? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to stay connected with the past.